Hi, everyone, and welcome to Career Pivots and Second Acts, the ultimate telesummit for your mid-career transition. I'm your host, Tajan B. Renderis, and it's my honor to introduce Laura Hutchinson to you. Now, Laura is a productivity and planner nerd trying desperately to simplify her stuff and get her stuff together since she had a kid and sharing what she learns along the way. Her no-nonsense advice can be found at howtogyst.com. And she encourages that we all grab life by the lemons and start squeezing.
Yep.
Laura, again, thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Awesome. So shall we dive into the content?
Let's do it. Let's get straight to the good stuff.
Okay. So folks, today we're going to be talking about goal setting and action planning as it relates to career transition, which can be quite challenging for most people, especially, when you have a job and a life and kids and you're mid-career. There's a lot more going on relative to when you might have been entry level, and your only job is to look for a job. So, many people know year after year that they hate their jobs and that they want to transition, but they do very little to create goals and an action plan to change things. So, Laura, for listeners who are in that paralysis mode, how do you recommend that they get out of that?
So I think, first of all, that paralysis mode comes from the fact that there are so many options out there. And I think there are probably maybe two types of people watching. So there's probably somebody who knows the direction they want to go or kind of has an idea of what they want to do, but just isn't sure how to get there. And then I think maybe the other person has no idea what they want to do. They just know that currently they are unhappy and they would like to make a change. So I would say for the person who knows what they want to do or has a good idea of what they want to do, it starts with kind of problem solving in a way. So looking at other people who are in the industry that you want to be in, maybe making a phone call, but just breaking it down into very small, simple things that you can do, because changing careers is such a huge, overwhelming thing. So once you sit down and you start to brainstorm, okay, well, who do I know that's in that industry, or what other companies kind of do that type of work, or what kind of skills would I need? And I think that can be really important when you break things down, when you write them down, when they're in front of you in black and white, very simple, basic steps. And then it comes down to basically scheduling in time. So can you give, 10 minutes a day to it, or maybe an hour on the weekend, but starting to kind of make that shift right now, even if it's just getting up 10 minutes earlier to update your resume, if it's spending an hour on the weekend, taking an online class or doing some research or meeting up with somebody who kind of has the skills you want or has the job that you want to do. So I think that's very important to break it down so it's not this big overwhelming thing, because changing careers, there are so many steps along the way. So it's just finding one little step that you can do in 5 or 10 minutes today, and then just going ahead and doing it, finding that little bit of time in your day. And then I think for the other person who has absolutely no idea what they want to do, I think it's important to try lots of different things. Look up a brochure for a local college or university, see if there's anything that kind of jumps out at you. Maybe go on YouTube and kind of fall down that rabbit hole and just look at the videos that interest you and the topics that interest you. Think about, what you enjoy doing in your spare time. If you had a free weekend, that your family were away, you had no responsibilities, all the laundry was done for you magically. What are the types of things that you would enjoy doing? And again, it becomes part of just, sitting down thinking, what do I enjoy doing? Or what do I think I would like doing? I think realistically, there is no perfect job. there is no perfect career. Even if you think, oh, I would really like that thing, just because there's something about it that you don't like doesn't necessarily mean that that wouldn't be a good fit for you. I love my job, but there are certainly days when I procrastinate and when I just don't want to do it. Still have to file taxes and I still have to do paperwork and all of that fun stuff. So it really comes down to breaking it down. What is the one step you could take today that would really help to just move you a little bit closer? I think fears is a big one as well that keeps people from acting. I think a lot of us have a fear of some sort. So maybe it's a fear of, like the financial element. Maybe you're afraid that you make this leap and it won't work out, and all of a sudden you've lost a stream of income. So again, it comes back to that problem solving. Okay, if that is a big fear for you, could you go to the bank today and open a savings account and start auto depositing money in? If it's a fear of, maybe you're doing the job that your mother has done or your father has done, and maybe it's a family business. Maybe you're doing something that was kind of expected of you, or something that you thought that you would like and you just don't, and you're afraid of people not supporting your decision. Just sit down with them and say, look, I'm really not happy with where this is going. I'm thinking of trying something new. These are my reasons. Again, just trying to get to the root of those fears. Essentially, it all comes down to a fear of failure. We're all afraid that we will mess up in some way and we will be judged, or it will have some detrimental effect on ourselves or on someone else. But that is the nature of life. And I think if you do what I suggested and you write down the baby steps that will get you there, if you write down one thing that you could do today and it will only take 5 or 10 minutes, then you slowly transition your life over a period of a few weeks or even a few months, so that then it's not so scary. You've already kind of dipped your toe, you've acclimatized to the new surroundings and the new situation, and you just slowly insert yourself into that new world.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. That is really helpful. And I think certainly for the folks who are afraid and who are really stuck and not able to get into the goal setting or action planning phase because of that fear, what you're suggesting around taking some action to address that fear being the first baby step. It's like a baby step in disguise. It's really a big step, but
Exactly.
is important to schedule that too. So if it means having a conversation with your family members about, any fallout that might happen from your leaving the family business, is literally something that should be scheduled.
Yes, it really should. And I mean, often when we're facing these fears, they seem so huge and so insurmountable. But I think, again, if you problem solve and you think, okay, how can I minimize the chances of that happening? What is the worst case scenario and what can I do? What do I have control over that I could put in place right now that would minimize that, or that would make me feel a little bit better about this situation? Or, if the worst did happen and this new career, maybe didn't work out or didn't work out the way I planned, or it took me a little bit longer to get there, I have that savings account already set up, or I've already spoken to, the person that this is going to affect, and I know that I have their support and their encouragement. So when you actively face something head on and you do the little things that you have the control over, it makes you feel much better. It makes you feel much more empowered. And again, it's about that kind of slow immersion, something that seems huge right now, through baby steps and just kind of slowly integrating things into your life. Suddenly they're not quite as daunting. I'm sure we've all had that, experience where you think something is horrendous and so scary and terrifying, and then you just get through it. Right. I think if we all look back, we all have those situations where we thought it was the end of the world and something terrible was going to happen, and here we are,
right,
surviving.
Right, absolutely. So Laura, what's your philosophy around goal setting and action planning?
The big one for me, and I think this has been proven in many scientific studies, is writing things down. I think when you write something down, your brain just commits to it that little bit more. We all have thoughts and ideas and dreams and fantasies of what we want to do, but actually sitting down and saying, okay, I am committing this to paper. I am writing this down in black and white. It makes your brain kind of sit up and take notice. Like, okay, this is actually something that's not just spinning around up in here along with the thousands of other things that I'm thinking about on a daily basis. This is something that we're serious about. And again, when something is in your head, or maybe this is just me, but things in your head are kind of fluffy and airy-fairy, and they don't really have a form, and they melt and merge with all of these other things. But when you write it down on paper, you get really clear. You have to clarify something. You have to put words on it. And that forces your brain to think, okay, what do I really want here? How can I express this? What does this look like for me? What would that feel like? What's involved in that situation? So it helps you to really clarify what you want. Again, everyone kind of thinks like, oh, it would be great to be able to do such and such. But when you sit down and you write about it, to give you kind of a very personal, maybe silly example, but I have a daughter, and, ever since she's 5 now, and ever since I had her, some people have asked, when are you going to have another one? And sometimes I think maybe I will have another one. But when I actually sit down and think about that, okay, do I really want another child? Mm-hmm. The answer is no. Like mm-hmm. It's, when I sit down and I really get clear on what that looks like for me, all of a sudden the answer is very clear for me. So be very specific about what you want. We all want like better lives or better jobs, but be specific. What does that look like for you? What kinds of things would be involved in that type of job? How would your day be structured? Would it be kind of a 9 to 5? Would it be very flexible? Think about the things in your current job, or if you're not currently working, past jobs that you've had. What did you like about those particular jobs? And on the flip side, what did you not like? And through that, you can kind of craft a much clearer vision, which will give you a much clearer direction to move in. I think you also have to think about things being measurable. So these are kind of the SMART goals. So the first one, the S, being specific. So again, getting very clear on what you want. And then the second one, M, being measurable. Mm-hmm. At what point can you say, I have achieved this? Because again, we all want that great job, or we all want, health, great health. But those things are very abstract. You need to have a point at which you can say, I have met this goal. I have achieved this. This is exactly what I wanted. I am doing the thing that I have set out to do. So being, having something measurable that you can track, or a point at which you can say, this is done. I can officially tick this one off the list. The A then and the R for me kind of go hand in hand. So the A is for achievable. So something has to be achievable. It has to be, for me, I could want to be the president, but that's not achievable for me. It's not achievable in the US because I'm not an American citizen. It's not even achievable for me in Ireland, where I'm from originally, because you have to be 35 and I'm 34. So something has to be achievable. We all have like kind of wild fantasies, but keep it achievable. And then the R is for realistic. Traveling the world, maybe you have the finances to do that, and maybe it is kind of realistic or achievable in a sense. But if you have a family, you have a husband and you've got 5 kids and they're all kind of relying on you, you can't just up sticks and go travel the world and become a travel blogger or whatever. So keeping it realistic. Something I also like to think about is keeping it relevant, keeping it relevant to your particular circumstances. What are your skills? What are you good at? I would love to be, very artistic and, have lovely scrapbooks, and I'd love to be able to sing well, but, those are not skills that are relevant for me. They don't relate to me and the skills that I actually have. Mm-hmm. So again, it comes down to kind of being very clear on what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final one, the T stands for time restrained. So put a deadline on it. You know, if you've got a goal or a dream that you want to fulfill, giving yourself a lifetime to do it means it will never get done.
Right.
Because you will always just say, well, I'll get to that next year or next month, or I've still got time to do that. But putting a deadline on it, you know, by this time next year, I want to be in this particular situation. And then working back from that. So, okay, if in a year's time, I want to be in this new job, what do I need to do like in the next few months to kind of move me much further along that road? And then again, bringing it all the way back, what do I need to do today? What is one tiny step that I can take today that is going to move me forward? For me, it always comes back to the baby steps. It always comes back to what is the thing that I can do today? And it could be something very simple, like just looking up a phone number. It could be something very simple, like writing something on my calendar. You know, it could be something as simple as making an appointment. But what can you do right now? Maybe just having a conversation with someone, you know, sitting down with your spouse or your other half and saying, hey, I'm kind of thinking about this. I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Yeah, it all comes back to this is where I want to be at this particular time. I'm very clear on what I want. This is what I'm going to do right now to make sure that when that year or whatever rolls around, I'm where I need to be.
Awesome. That is really helpful, Laura. Thank you for giving our viewers those really concrete tips. I mean, I think keeping our action steps smart is so crucial. And the whole notion of visioning and building towards it is always a helpful reminder. I think, unfortunately, we all know that. And far too often as it relates to career transition, because your life seems to be fine as it is, it's not like a broken leg that requires urgent, immediate attention and action. Far too often we never get it from the headspace onto written paper. So that baby step of sitting down with your spouse to be like, hey, I'm thinking about this. Can you hold me accountable?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's like that, you know, again, that fear that seems so insurmountable, but when you write it down on paper and you take it day by day, just one tiny little thing at a time, and you just, you know, chip away at it little by little, it just becomes this thing that is incorporated into your life. It becomes a habit. Because I think very often, and it's very similar to what you said, you know, your life seems fine. And sometimes we have this kind of better the devil you know sort of approach, because change is scary and we don't know what to expect and we don't know what that new job is going to be like. But again, if you just take those baby steps and you just dip your toe and say, okay, today I'm just going to have a conversation, see where it leads. Tomorrow I'm just going to update my resume. The next day I'm just going to research kind of some skills or some local classes that I could take. Those very, very basic baby steps just help to kind of, you know, nothing is changing all at once. So it's not this horrifying thing that just happens like tomorrow I'm going to quit my job and starting my new company and that's it. But it's just slowly acclimatizing yourself to those new changes, getting comfortable in it, just kind of testing it out and see how it feels and transitioning yourself into this new phase of your life.
So now, Laura, I know we've been talking about baby steps, but are there any circumstances where with a career transition, you would encourage clients that you might work with to take massive action rather than baby steps, to like just jump into the cold river water than like inch their toe in it?
To be honest, probably not. I think for me, I'm all about the baby steps. When I think about massive action, I think it's just one of those terms. Massive action, really, when you break it down, there are so many baby steps involved in massive action.
Absolutely.
So I think if you let's go back to that example of, you're going to quit your job tomorrow and start up your new company. That's kind of massive action.
Yes.
And after that, for the next few months, you have to think, okay, well, now I have to hire a team. I have to go looking for people. I have to interview people. Now I have to find myself a lawyer or an accountant. Now I have to, I don't know, come up with a sample product. Now I have to get, a PR person or marketing. And it's still a process. There are still lots of things involved.
Yeah.
And I think kind of the difference in maybe perspective is that with the baby steps, even though there are still baby steps involved in both, I think you're doing kind of what I've been talking about. You're taking those small steps, testing it out, seeing how it's going, and kind of tweaking things as you go. And then when you feel ready, then you quit your job and you start your company and you're kind of up and running, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, if you're doing that massive action and you're quitting your job right now, you still have to do all those other steps. You're just kind of doing them in reverse.
Right.
I think massive action is great if you are a very disciplined person. If you have a lot of maybe finances and support and stuff backing you up, like if it's not as scary, quitting your job isn't kind of the end of the world for you if it doesn't work out. So in those situations, and if you've got a good sense of risk and how much risk you're willing to take, I think massive action in those situations may pay off for you. But I always recommend going the baby step route first, because sometimes you just don't know, something, because the grass is always greener on the other side, I suppose. You think, this is the way I want to go. I'm sure about this. I'm quitting my job. I'm all in. And then it just doesn't turn out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think with the baby step method, you dip your toe, you test it out. If something isn't working, you still have time to kind of tweak and change things and maybe even redirect yourself or just hone your vision that much more before you eventually take that massive action and you say, okay, now I have been trying this out for 6 months. I've been doing an hour here and an hour there, and I feel good about this. Mm-hmm. So I think they're kind of the same thing, as in they will get you the same result and probably in more or less the same time frame. But I think the baby steps, if you're a little bit risk shy, or if you have, a family that you have to support or whatever, I think the baby steps, testing things out, is probably the way to go. But I think it's kind of much of a muchness, but I think the baby steps way is just a little bit of a less risky approach.
Right. And I think ultimately with either approach, so for the folks who may want to, dive in, and for the folks who are inching their way there, consistent action is required. I think based on what you're saying, Laura, you still have to be, it's one thing and then the next thing and then the next thing and then the next thing, and just consistently that momentum is
exactly.
Without that, neither method, nothing works.
No, I mean, we've all been in that situation where you start something and then, it peters out, you run out of steam. It comes down to just saying, okay, for 10 minutes every day, I'm going to do this thing. And always knowing what the next step is.
Yeah.
Complete one step. Okay, I'm going to update my resume. What is the next thing I could do? Okay, well, I can see there's a gap here on my resume where I need this skill. Okay, well, my next step then is going to be researching, local education centers. And nothing, massive, like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to sign up for a brand new class, but just like researching, what are my options here? But always be thinking, like, never finish one thing and not have any idea what the next step is going to be. For me, I never feel like I've done something, like something is complete until I know what the next step is. Sometimes something is complete in and of itself and you think, okay, and that's when you sit down and you say, I did it, and you take that time to congratulate yourself and feel great about it. But other times it's kind of like, okay, I've done this. Where do I need to go next? Because if you just do something, you think, yeah, this is great, I've done that, and then you park it, you don't, like you said, you don't have that momentum built up. You don't have that excitement that's going to push you forward. If you don't have that vision, you don't know where you're going. If you don't have your roadmap kind of worked out, even if you can't see the full journey, but if you can see, okay, now I need to turn left here, and then you turn left and then you think, okay, then I have to go straight or whatever. It's knowing what is the next thing you need to do when you switch on your sat nav. Like, I never know, I don't have the whole route mapped out in my head, but I know, okay, in 200 yards I have to turn left or whatever. That's right. A bit of a silly example, but you know what the next step is, and that helps push you forward. It helps build that momentum and that excitement, keep you going. You have to get clear, and again, having that deadline in front of you, like, okay, I need to sign up to this class by, September or whenever enrollment is, or I need to, whatever, I don't know, I need to have my savings account. I need to have X amount in my savings account in 6 months' time. So having that very clear vision, what is the next step I need to do? And once that's done, what's the next step? And when does this all need to be wrapped up by?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Laura. It's really helpful. I think you've shared lots of nuggets of wisdom today that folks can start implementing immediately. Now, I know you had a free gift to offer our audience. Can you tell folks a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'm going to be offering, it is a free kind of goal setting guide. Basically kind of talking you through the steps that I've gone through in this interview, but just something that you'll be able to sit down with and fill in, and it will kind of ask you some of the questions, like, what is my big fear around this? What are the things that I can control about this? What can I do to minimize that risk? What is my next step on this journey? It goes through, like the SMART goals as well, setting things up. So asking yourself, is this very specific? Is this a very clear goal? Am I very clear on what I want? It just kind of walks you through the steps that you need, gives you some kind of prompts along the way, so that by the end of it, you are very clear on what you want and how you're going to get it.
Okay, awesome. And where's the best place for folks to find you online? And I know all of this will be in the interview notes, but just so you can mention it, where are you most active?
Well, most active, I suppose, social media. So on Facebook, How to GYST, but the blog is howtogyst.com, and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/howtogyst. Basically, if you Google How to GYST, I will appear. But yeah, the blog and the website and the YouTube channel are kind of the ones that would have all of that, like, really important information that's all kind of, gathered together in a blog post or in a video. And then social media is kind of where I interact on a daily basis and, share little kind of tips and nuggets and other resources and things like that. But yeah, How to GYST will find me in most places.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Laura, for joining us as part of this summit. We very much appreciate all that you've contributed, all your wisdom and insight and advice and really helpful information. And to all the viewers, we encourage you to take some of this and put it into practice right away. There's no need to wait. If anything has piqued your interest, anything that Laura has shared or that we have discussed, go ahead and get out your journals, get out your action, your planners, and get started right away with these baby steps.
Yeah, because even just in 10 minutes from now, you could be much clearer on what your goal is. You could be that one step closer. That's all it takes, just a few minutes.
Exactly. And so with that, we'll close. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.